Hi, my name is Sarah, and I have written a book called Finding Peace, which is a devotional book for Christians who are dealing with anxiety. And one in these days of dealing with the coronavirus and having to shelter in place or have stay-at-home orders, as we just got here in North Carolina, I want to take a minute to talk about anxiety in kids. Um, Children are home from school. Suddenly they go from, hey, teacher, hug my teacher goodbye on Friday, or high five, or fist bump, and then that's it. That's it until at least mid-May. And um, it was a very tumultuous time for a lot of parents who are suddenly find themselves having to crisis school. It was a big stress on kids who didn't really know what was going on. And really pretty heartbreaking for teachers too, as they were expecting to see their kids again on that following Monday, only to be told, schools are closed, you're not going to see your kids for a while. So here in North Carolina, schools are going to be closed it'll be a total of 2 months by the time they're done, and by the time they could possibly go back. So, um, and it's really hard to figure out, how do I talk to my kids about this? How do I know what they're feeling? So I want to give you just some guidance and some suggestions, some things that have worked for me. Now, caveat, I have degrees in psychology, counseling, and chaplaincy. So one of the things that has been a part of our life as a family from the beginning with kids is talk about your feelings. You're feeling sad, you're feeling angry, you're feeling frustrated. And we have always given our kids those words to try to put together with what they were feeling. So not only were they having the feeling, but they would have a way to articulate those feelings. Doesn't always work. Even as pretty psychologically and emotionally sophisticated as our kids are, they still, those feelings come up and they don't really stop long enough to know, what am I feeling here? They just express. They might act out. They may pick fights with their sibling. Um, they may, be cranky a lot. So it's really on us then to sit down and say, okay, what's going on here? One thing that came up that really sparked my thinking on this is an email that came from my teenager's youth minister this week with some suggestions for talking to your kids about anxiety or fear. And it was a handout PDF form. And one of the things that sort of made me cringe is fear is the opposite of faith. Um, Again, cringeworthy, because you can be afraid and you can have anxiety and you can still have faith in God. And to teach children that these cannot coexist in them at the exact same time is horrid. It sets children up to grow up to be teenagers or adults who feel guilty every time they feel anxious or afraid about something. Um, Fear does have a evolutionary function. It helps to save us from threats. Sorry about the bobble on the camera. My cat keeps walking between me and my laptop and hitting the stand. And um, and I've seen the effects of guilt on someone who's feeling anxious, and it is heartbreaking. It's so tough seeing someone who has a legitimate reason to feel anxious and to feel worried, and who is so strong in their faith, and then layer the guilt on top of that. Oh, I shouldn't be feeling this way. Oh, it's terrible for me to feel this way. I'm a horrible Christian. I'm a terrible, terrible person. I'm a terrible, terrible person because I am feeling anxious. No, you know, there are lots of things that we tell ourselves. Um, and But seldom do we say you can be faithful and fearful at the same time. So what do you do with that? Where do they come into play, and how do you balance these two out? I can promise you that if your amount of faith had anything to do with anxiety, then either never had anxiety or I'm the worst Christian ever. It's going to be one of the two. Um, if reciting Bible verses and reading the Bible and praying earnestly could cure anxiety, I would have never needed my counselor. I would have never taken up yoga, and I would never have started practicing mindfulness because I was praying constantly. I was praying to God all the time. God, what's going on? I feel like I'm going crazy. Help me. Um, I was reading my Bible. I lead my daughters in Bible study every day. It's part of our school curriculum. Um, so just praying for the anxiety or the fear to go away isn't enough to make it go away. We need to tell our kids when they're feeling afraid or they're feeling anxious to say, it's okay to feel that way. It's okay to worry sometimes. I bet you as a parent, I bet you worry sometimes too. I bet you worry when, I don't know, maybe you have a bill coming up, but you had a medical emergency and you're wondering how you're going to pay for both on that paycheck. You probably worry about your kids anytime there's a shelter in place because there was an active shooter alert. There are lots of times that we worry, and it's part of our life. It doesn't make us a less good Christian at all. It makes us human. Um, so how do we address anxiety with kids? One, we just straight up ask them, how are you feeling? Um, Normalize those feelings. Yeah, a lot of people feel anxious. A lot of people are worried right now. A lot of people feel afraid. Sometimes I feel afraid. Sometimes I feel anxious. Sometimes I feel worried. And share with them a time that maybe you do feel worried or anxious or afraid. Um, Create a calm space to talk about this. Um, One of the things that my husband used to do with our now teenager, is every night as she was winding down, they would sit together and color. She had a coloring books, they had colored pencils and gel pens, and they would sit and color. This was their time and talk. Because after being around me all day, she didn't want to talk to me anymore. She was done with mama. She just wanted to talk to dad. And so they sat and they talked, and that was sort of her calm time to talk things out, process her feelings about stuff. So, creating a calm space for your kids to talk, doing something that doesn't require a lot of thought, just a little coloring, a little drawing, um, maybe taking a walk together. These are some really great ways for um, your kids to know that this is a safe place. It's okay to come to their parents with these feelings that they don't quite completely understand. Um, Another way to do it is not to shove Bible at them. Great. One of the things that the Bible's great. Um, advocate using it, but just work it in. Yeah, I know you're feeling afraid. I know you're feeling anxious, but one of the things that the Bible tells us is no matter what, God is with us. God doesn't condemn us ever for feeling afraid or anxious. God says, just come. Jesus says in Matthew, come to me, all who are burdened, and I will give you rest. He doesn't say you're not going to be burdened. He says, come, bring that burden with you. Um, we see over and over that God just says, hey, I'm here. I'm with you. I'm going to take care of you. Yeah, bring your whole messy, anxious, worried self with you. It's all right. I'm with you. I am present with you, no matter what you bring to the table. And it's not about what we bring to the table. It is about what God brings to the table. And God brings that strength that we lack. And God brings that assurance for us, God's children, to say, yeah, tell me what's going on with you. It's going to be all right. So, um, so allow your children to have these anxieties and these worries and these fears. Normalize those emotions. Share the time when you felt that way. Maybe if you saw God at work through that, either directly through something you did, like your prayer, or your devotional time, or through the actions of someone else, share that. So normalize those feelings, but also share the ways that God works with us and is present with us through those times, because God has promised that for us. So, again, please, 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 for the sake of your children and the future adults that they will be, do not shame them for feeling anxious or afraid. Don't tell them that their faith is bad, that if they are anxious or afraid, because if we teach our children that faith and fear are opposites, it means that you can't have one while you have the other one. You think about other opposites, hot and cold. If you're hot, you're not feeling cold. Wet or dry. If you're in the shower and you're wet, obviously you're not dry. So by presenting these two as opposites, we're saying that if you're feeling afraid, then you're lacking faith. And that's not the case at all. So if you have any questions, feel free to drop those in the comments. And may you have God's peace with you through this time. May your children have God's peace through this time. And may you stay well.